Welcome to another episode of Real Talk, um, sponsored by Real Talk Global Ministries, where we show God's people how to apply God's word to their daily lives. I am Minister Cedric Hart, joined as always by Minister Kenneth Randall. And
Hello.
today, Minister Randall is going to start us off by um, letting us know what today's topic is. And I turn the floor over to you, sir.
All right. Okay. Uh, Good morning, everybody. So I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I came across this phrase or this topic called progressive revelation, in terms of how God reveals Himself to us, and also how we also from that learn more about ourselves. So I said, that was my first time kind of hearing that. I thought that'd be a good thing for us to sit, sit and talk about today. And when I before I get well, when I get started, you always want to start at the beginning. So what's the word say at the beginning? If we go back to Genesis and look at how God what God thinks about man, how God reveals Himself to man. We first have to realize that we are made in God's image. And in Genesis 1, 20, 26 and 27, it reads that it says that then God said, "Let us make man in our own image, according to our likeness. Let him have dominion over the fish in the sea, the birds of the air, and the cattle and all of that." And then it says, "And God created man in His own image. In the image of God, He created him, male and female, He created them." So we are created, designed in the image of God. So in order for us to fully know who we are, we have to know who God is. There's just no way for us to understand who we are fully without seeking and knowing who God is.
The thing is, the context of us understanding ourselves lies in how much we understand who God is.
Right.
Okay, I agree.
Yes.
Mhm.
And and so so uh and I think God reveals Himself piece by piece, little by little, and that kind of that growth in that relationship is what He builds on in our lives. Um, and even if you look at, but if we go back to the beginning, I like going back to the beginning again, and look at how God dealt with Adam and Eve in the garden. Now they were provided everything that they really needed, but in the midst of the garden, He gave them. There was two trees: tree of life and a tree of knowledge of good and evil.
The
That
two,
was,
the two special trees. These were
huh?
these were not trees that were planted there for nourishment. These were two special trees.
Special trees. Yes,
Right. Okay.
two special trees.
Mhm.
So when now if we recall the story that the serpent came to Eve, and he was trying to convince her uh, think, things to eat the fruit by pretty much discrediting God, saying that what God's word said wasn't really true, that implying that He was a liar, and then trying to imply that God didn't want the best for her, for them, by saying, he didn't want you, if you do this, you'll be like He was, implying that they weren't already like He was, because He said that we were made in His image.
Right. Right.
And so had they had a true understanding of who God is, then they would have recognized that as a lie from the beginning, because they would have known that, hey, I'm made in God's image. So what you're trying to tell me is really a lie. But because they didn't, then instead of choosing life, they chose death.
That's a that's a great point. Is um, they were already created in God's image, and then for the serpent, the devil, to come along to Eve and to have her doubt what God said, you know, what he did was he had her doubt what God said about the special tree.
Yeah,
It's one special tree, but like you said, if she would have just realized that I'm just like God, you know, so the devil tried to make it saying, well, God doesn't want you to be like him, but she was already like him.
yes.
Right. So, as was Adam, because we were created in his image. Now, we weren't equal to him, never will we be, but the thing about being created in the image of God means there are ways in which you can look at yourself and see God in it.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And it's, I mean, it's a whole, what what the enemy constantly tries to do in our lives is to make us feel like we're deficient, like there's something that's missing, like that we don't measure up. And
God
what
is
God,
like God is holding something back from us
yes,
that would make us better than what we already are.
right. And we constantly seek after these things to make us whole. And we can find those things in a whole lot of different areas. But they're all counterfeit, because the one true thing that we're seeking for is only found in God.
And once we understand who we are in Him, then we understand that we're already whole. We're not missing anything.
That's right.
Yeah, man, boy, I want to get up and run up and shout right now because this is the problem that we have in the Christian community is as humans, you know, we're broken in certain ways. I don't know of any human who doesn't experience brokenness in certain times. But our brokenness doesn't mean that we're lacking in godliness because
Yeah,
our very
boy.
the mold in which we were poured, we were created in his image. So the mold from the very beginning was good. And the only reason why we experience brokenness is because we live in a fallen world.
That's
And
right.
it causes us to feel less than, right? But if we just go back to the beginning, like you say, go back to the beginning. Genesis 1, created in the image of God Himself.
That's right.
So it's kind of like having a house, an old house, you know, a house that was built in 1960, and you buy this house in 2022, and you want to go in and renovate this house. The first thing you look at is, man, what's the bones like? What's the framing
Yeah.
like?
Yeah.
If these bones are still good. I mean, this house it looks like trash, but it's standing because the bones are still good. The framing is good. This was like good wood that you put the thing up. So even though the course of time is harsh to it, and cosmetically it looks like less than what it was, on the inside it's as strong as it ever was from the beginning. And that's what we have. That's what our soul is.
Yeah.
Um, Created in the image of God. And if we would just go back to that and look at that and meditate on that, then we would see that our brokenness is merely cosmetic.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wow.
And it all boils down to how much we know God, how are we seeking God, how do we understand God, and as a model, because we always like to have people that we can or that we can aspire to. Jesus was the only man who fully knew who God was. Therefore, he was able to navigate through this world, uh, understanding his power and his authority, and even when he started teaching in the temple, the people would say, "Hey, this man is speaks as someone with authority. His teaching isn't like what we've been hearing in the past." So, and that authority came from him understanding his assignment, who he was, his purpose. And when we're constantly seeking and searching for our purpose, and when we're putting our making other things our focus, our image, and we're selling for a counterfeit image to build ourselves off of, then we end up selling ourselves short and repeating these same processes, these same failures. But I like that, even though we make these mistakes, God, when you look through the Bible, and we were talking about this earlier, when you look through the Bible, God deals with us in different stages, and even though we might have, let's say, a gap in our understanding of who God is at one stage in our lives, if we keep going and keep seeking after him, that personal relationship, he reveals himself, and then that becomes something stronger. He did the same thing with his people. I mean, you talked about issues in the Bible. I mean, images in the Bible.
Yeah. There was the more, the longer you walk with God, there's a progressive revelation of himself that he provides to you.